Imagine walking into the modern dating world, believing that being kind, respectful, hardworking, and honest would naturally earn you a woman's attention. You think the basics of being a good man should be enough. But then reality slaps you in the face. You're invisible. She scrolls past your messages on dating apps, ignores your compliments in real life, and seems far more fascinated by the man with status, followers, or chaos than the one offering stability. That's the harsh truth about women's standards today. They are not what you thought, and the gap between what men provide and what women demand is wider than ever before. This truth is uncomfortable because it forces you to question everything you were taught. You were told growing up that if you studied hard, worked a stable job, treated women with respect, and provided security, you'd be seen as a prize. But in today's dating market, that narrative feels outdated. What women expect now has been shaped by a mix of cultural shifts, technology, and constant exposure to unrealistic comparisons. When a woman opens her phone and sees men with yachts, luxury lifestyles, or six-figure followings at her fingertips, her standards adjust, not consciously, but inevitably. Suddenly, the average hard-working man seems boring. His attention doesn't feel rare because digital pleasure and online fantasies flood her with endless validation. Why settle for one man's time when hundreds are competing for her attention every single day? The problem is not that women are evil or shallow, it's that we live in an era of hyperstimulation. Just as men can get trapped in lust addiction by drowning in explicit material, women can get addicted to the constant stream of validation from likes, comments, and DMs. Both sides are being rewired, but in different ways. The average man she used to find attractive now blends into the background because her perception has been distorted. She's comparing you not just to the men in her real life, but to a global marketplace of men constantly signaling wealth, adventure, and status online. This creates frustration for men because the rules no longer make sense. You show up with sincerity, only to be overlooked for someone who barely invests but projects confidence and scarcity. You put in effort and kindness, but it feels like it backfires. The harsher reality? Women today are less impressed by effort and more drawn to what feels rare. And in a world where so many men are desperate for attention, the rarest thing you can offer is indifference. The men who hold back, who don't beg, who don't pedestalize, suddenly become more attractive, not because they're better men, but because their self-respect is harder to access. But here's the twist. This isn't about becoming bitter or blaming women. It's about recognizing how the environment has changed and adapting. If you keep playing by the old rules, you'll keep losing. If you keep thinking that effort alone guarantees attraction, you'll stay frustrated. The new game is about value perception. You must stop leaking energy into places that drain you. Screens over reality, shallow flattery, and seeking approval. Instead, you build yourself in ways that naturally shift the balance. When you develop discipline, focus, and ambition, you communicate something that stands out. You're not competing for validation. You're creating a frame where she has to earn yours. And this is where the transformation happens. When you stop chasing, women start paying attention differently. At first, they may test you, withdraw, or even ignore you to see if you'll collapse like every other man. But when you don't, when you stay centered and unbothered, the power dynamic flips. She realizes you're not another option in her endless pool of suitors. You're the one who sees through the noise. You're the man who doesn't give his attention cheaply, and that alone makes you more desirable than the ones desperately fighting for it. The harsh truth about women's standards in modern dating is that they're not lowering anytime soon. If anything, they'll keep rising as technology pushes the perception of abundance even further. But that doesn't mean you're doomed. It means you must stop trying to meet unrealistic standards and start embodying your own. When you no longer live for validation, when you no longer let lust or distractions drain your drive, you begin to separate yourself from the masses. That's when women notice, not because you begged, but because you became rare in a world addicted to easy attention. Now, let's break down what this shift feels like on a deeper level. At first, you'll feel resistance. The same women who once overlooked you may suddenly test your boundaries harder because they're not used to men holding the line. But over time, their respect grows. They sense you don't need them, and paradoxically, that's what makes them want you. And the more you experience this shift, the more you realize the truth. Women's standards don't control you anymore. Your standards do. Modern dating feels like a marketplace, but not one where everyone has equal access to opportunity. The moment you begin to study how interactions play out today, you'll notice that women's standards operate on a scale that seems impossible for the average man to meet. It's not that kindness, stability, or loyalty have stopped mattering. It's that those qualities no longer serve as the entry point. They're assumed, they're expected, and they don't spark attraction on their own. What women filter for first, in this age of hyper-choice, are traits that signal rarity. confidence, status, social proof, independence, and discipline. If you don't project those, you never even get a chance to show the rest. This is where so many men collapse. They invest in all the safe behaviors they were told would work. Compliments, gifts, constant availability, thinking they're proving themselves as worthy. But instead, they're disqualifying themselves, because the modern environment has trained women to interpret that energy as desperation. When attention is unlimited, what carries value is scarcity. If a man can't hold back his time and energy, he looks like everyone else flooding her inbox. But if a man is selective, calm, and composed, his attention feels rare, and rare creates desire. The harsh truth is this: technology rewired the standards. With dating apps, women have access to thousands of men, and their perception of average has shifted. If every profile claims to be fit, ambitious, and fun, then those qualities stop standing out. If influencers and celebrities fill her feed daily, her subconscious compares you to them, not to the guy sitting next to her at work. This doesn't make her cruel, it makes her human. Just like men conditioned by explicit material and screens over reality lose appreciation for real intimacy, women conditioned by endless validation lose appreciation for simple, genuine effort. Both sides are shaped by the same machine. Men who don't see this fall into traps. They think if they just work harder to impress, if they send longer texts, buy better gifts, or wait patiently, eventually she'll realize their value. But modern dating doesn't reward patience. It rewards decisiveness and presence. A man who knows when to walk away, who doesn't hesitate to say no, who doesn't explain himself endlessly, that man communicates more power in silence than another man does in a year of effort. And women feel it immediately. So what does this mean for you? It means you can't approach dating like a hopeful student waiting to be graded. You must flip the frame. Instead of thinking, how do I meet her standards, you begin asking, does she meet mine? That subtle shift changes everything, because it pulls you out of scarcity and places you back into choice. Most men, drained by lust addiction and digital distractions, can't imagine doing this. They're so used to seeking approval that they forget they're allowed to filter too. But when you actually live this way, when you raise your own standards, women sense it. They recognize that your attention isn't something you give lightly. And that recognition alone shifts the dynamic of power in your favor. Here's the irony: the very standards that frustrate men are the same ones that can liberate them. Women demanding more forces you to become more, not in the shallow sense of pretending to be someone you're not, but in the deeper sense of actually embodying strength, discipline, and purpose. If the dating market didn't raise the bar, many men would never discover what they were capable of. They'd settle into comfort, scrolling endlessly, giving their energy away for nothing. But when you confront the harsh reality that you won't be chosen for the basics, you're forced to either collapse or evolve. The ones who evolve don't just succeed in dating, they succeed in every area of life. And let's be honest, not every woman wants the same thing. There are countless women who still value loyalty, honesty, and grounded masculinity. But the problem is those women rarely show up in the environments where most men are looking. On dating apps, in nightlife, in highly curated online spaces, the competition is skewed. The loudest men, the flashiest men, the ones broadcasting an image, dominate perception. If you want women who care about more than that, you must build a life where they exist. Fitness communities, entrepreneurial networks, creative spaces, spiritual circles. That's where you'll find women who are less obsessed with the digital game and more focused on real-world connection. But even then, your presence must stand out. The real battle isn't against women's standards, it's against your own complacency. If you're constantly seeking release in digital pleasure, you'll never have the focus or drive to compete in the real world. If you're wasting hours fantasizing, you're falling behind men who are building businesses, sculpting their bodies, and living boldly. Women can feel the difference instantly. A man drained by fantasy energy carries an emptiness. A man fueled by discipline carries a gravity. And that gravity is what makes women adjust their behavior around him, even if subconsciously. So when we talk about modern dating standards, we're not just describing what women want. We're describing the kind of man you must become if you want to thrive. You cannot afford to be ordinary in a world where ordinary is invisible. You must step into rarity, not by faking status, but by embodying self-control, self-respect, and ambition. The harsh truth about women's standards is they expose the harsh truth about men's weaknesses. And if you face that truth directly, if you stop escaping into fantasies and confront the discomfort of growth, you'll discover something women never admit openly. What they truly want is not perfection, but presence. Not endless effort, but unshakable boundaries. Not constant availability, but selective investment. When you embody that, women don't just notice you, they fear losing you. Because in a sea of men drowning in desperation, you become the rare signal cutting through the noise. And the men who reach that level aren't worried about women's standards anymore. They've outgrown the game entirely. When you really stop to analyze it, the brutal divide in modern dating is not between men who are handsome and men who are not, or between men with money and men without. It's between men who radiate presence and men who radiate depletion. Presence can't be faked. It's not about smiling bigger, talking louder, or dressing flashier. Presence is the quiet gravity that comes when a man is in control of himself, and depletion is just as impossible to hide. When you've spent hours lost in online fantasies, drained by digital pleasure, or chasing validation in shallow ways, your body betrays you. You may think no one notices, but women read these signals instantly. They feel it in your posture, in your micro-expressions, in the way your voice falters when you speak. Let's be honest, most men underestimate just how intuitive women are. They've been reading male behavior since adolescence, filtering attention, decoding intentions. They don't need to consciously analyze it, they just feel it. And in that split second before you've even had a chance to say a clever word, she already knows whether you're in control of yourself or not. That's why the men who rise above lust addiction, who stop wasting themselves on screens over reality, notice such a dramatic shift in how women respond to them. It's not magic, it's biology. Women are wired to sense who is valuable and who is weak. And in today's environment, where validation is cheap and endless, true presence is rarer than ever. Picture this scenario. A man has been numbing himself night after night with explicit material. He steps into a social setting the next day, thinking he can hide it. His eyes dart quickly whenever a beautiful woman walks by. His laughter sounds just a little too forced when he tries to join a conversation. His compliments come out over-rehearsed, as if he's trying to earn approval. On the surface, nothing seems obviously wrong, but his energy leaks neediness in every interaction. Then look at the man next to him, the one who's been channeling his urges into training, into creativity, into building something tangible. His eyes don't flicker around nervously. They hold steady. His movements are deliberate. He doesn't rush to speak, doesn't rush to impress. He's simply there. Which man do you think leaves a stronger impression? Which one do women's standards naturally elevate? This is where abundance comes into play. Women today aren't choosing between one or two men they meet through friends or work. They're choosing from thousands of options, filtered through the lens of constant digital affirmation. Every swipe on a dating app tells her she can discard one man and instantly replace him with another. Every comment on her photo reminds her that men's attention is infinite. Against that backdrop, the average man's effort becomes invisible. Compliments don't land because she gets 100 a day. Offers to take her out don't excite her because they're always available. What cuts through the noise isn't effort, it's scarcity. It's the man who doesn't need to flood her with attention because he's already selective. It's the man who communicates without words that his energy is not cheap, not available to everyone, and not dependent on her approval. And this is the piece most men miss. They think the solution is to withdraw into games, to play cold, to manipulate, to pretend not to care. But pretending not to care is still caring too much. It's just the other side of desperation. She can feel the performance. It cracks under pressure. True scarcity comes from a deeper source. It comes from a life already full, from energy already directed into pursuits bigger than her. Fitness, ambition, discipline, purpose. These are the things that create an aura of selectivity without you saying a word. Because when you're genuinely busy building, you don't have to fake being unavailable. You already are. Think about how silence has shaped your own life. How many times have you failed, not because you said the wrong thing, but because you said nothing at all? Most men carry this quiet regret, but they rarely ask why they froze. The answer is simple: depletion. When your body is drained by late nights lost to screens, when your confidence is hollowed by constant comparison, when your attention is scattered, you don't have the reserves to show up fully. Women sense this instantly. They don't reject you because you're unattractive. They reject you because your energy tells them you're not ready. That's why leaving lust behind is not just about morality or discipline. It's about reclaiming the sharpness that modern dating demands. The men who cut off digital distractions and quit feeding the cycle of instant gratification discover something shocking. Their conversations flow more easily. Their presence grows heavier. They no longer second-guess every text, every word, every glance. They feel alive in their bodies again, and women feel it too. That aliveness doesn't just attract, it commands. It earns respect from men, as well as desire from women. And suddenly, women's high standards don't feel like a wall. They feel like a filter you pass through effortlessly because you've already been living at that level. The empowering truth is that once you understand this dynamic, the bitterness dissolves. You stop blaming women for being picky and start asking yourself if you've built a life worth picking. Are you disciplined with your attention? Are you pursuing goals that light you up from the inside? Are you strong enough to walk away from situations that drain you? If you can answer yes, rejection loses its sting. A woman's silence no longer feels like a verdict, it just feels like a filter, one you'll pass through with the right person because you're already enough. You're no longer terrified of not being chosen because you've chosen yourself first. That's the hidden key. Standards are not a punishment, they're an invitation. They force you to rise above mediocrity. They push you to cut the addictions that drain you and replace them with habits that fuel you. They reveal whether you're grounded or pretending. And once you embrace that, the whole game changes. You no longer see modern dating as unfair. You see it as a proving ground, a mirror reflecting back your own level of discipline, self-respect, and presence. And when you step into that version of yourself, you not only survive modern dating, you thrive in it. You stop being one of the countless men forgotten as soon as they leave the room and become the rare man whose presence lingers long after he's gone. Women don't just notice you, they feel the gravity of a man who doesn't need their approval, and that gravity is what makes you unforgettable. The men who truly understand the harsh truth about women's standards in modern dating are the ones who eventually stop fighting against it and start using it as fuel. Because once you peel away the frustration, you see that her standards aren't just about her, they're about you. They're about the life you've built, the way you carry yourself, the energy you project when you walk into a room. Modern dating didn't suddenly make women impossible to please. It just exposed how average most men have become. In a world drowning in distraction, digital pleasure, and endless self-indulgence, standing out doesn't take perfection, it takes discipline. Think about the last time you felt pulled into screens over reality. Hours lost on social feeds, chasing quick thrills, numbing boredom with instant gratification. That habit doesn't just waste time, it strips you of presence, and presence is everything in dating. A woman doesn't need to hear about your discipline. She feels it in the way you hold eye contact, the way your body moves, the calm confidence in your voice. These microsignals communicate whether you're a man who is owned by impulses or a man who owns them. Standards are simply a reflection of that. And here's what makes this truth harsh. No woman will lower her standards just because you complain they're too high. She won't suddenly value loyalty, kindness, or honesty more just because you think you deserve points for them. Those are expected by default. What separates you from the crowd is whether you can bring gravity. Gravity doesn't mean arrogance, it means stability. It means you are rooted when others are shaky. It means you don't chase when tested. It means you're not desperate for approval because you already know your value. That is what her subconscious is screening for, even when she can't articulate it. But most men sabotage themselves before they even step into the arena. They feed lust addiction until their energy is scattered. They pour out attention online until their words lose weight. They fantasize about women instead of interacting with them in the real world, and then wonder why they feel invisible. By the time they meet an actual woman, their confidence has been drained by comparison, their charisma dulled by constant distraction. And when she senses this, her standards filter them out immediately. Not because she's cruel, but because she knows she can't feel safe with a man who can't even lead himself. Imagine two men at a bar. One has been numbing himself for months with explicit material and late-night scrolling. He leans on the counter, distracted, his body slightly hunched, waiting for something to happen. When he speaks, his tone carries hesitation, as if every word needs her validation before he can finish it. The other man has been training, building, focused on his goals. He walks in with presence, not flashy but grounded, his eyes steady, his posture unshaken. When he talks, his words land like he means them. The difference isn't just physical, it's energetic. And which man do you think women's standards will elevate? Not the one complaining about how unfair things are, but the one who embodies the qualities that scarcity has made valuable. Now let's break this down into the deeper psychology. Modern women are surrounded by attention, but most of it is shallow. Messages, likes, compliments, they drown in it daily. But almost none of it feels real. Almost none of it comes from men who are truly centered, selective, and disciplined. So when she encounters a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't flood her with energy, who holds back naturally because his life is already full, she feels a jolt. It's not what she's used to. It unsettles her, makes her question herself. That tension, that uncertainty, is the seed of attraction. It's not the words you say, it's the energy you withhold. This is why the men who leave lust behind, who stop wasting themselves on digital illusions, suddenly find themselves more magnetic. Not because they became taller, richer, or more handsome overnight, but because they stopped radiating neediness. Their attention became scarce, and scarce attention feels valuable. Their presence grew heavier, and heavy presence feels desirable. That is the harsh truth about standards. They are not set in stone by women. They are triggered by the kind of man you decide to be. The challenge is that most men will hear this, nod, agree, and then go right back to their old habits. They'll spend hours online, burn their energy, and then wonder why they can't compete. They'll complain about modern dating, but never confront the real enemy, their own lack of control. And that's where the line is drawn. On one side, men who keep blaming. On the other, men who face the discomfort, who stop numbing themselves, who rebuild their confidence from the ground up. The second group isn't huge, but they are the ones women actually fear losing. And here's the closing note. Standards don't need to intimidate you. They need to challenge you. If you see them as an enemy, you'll resent women forever. But if you see them as a mirror, you'll realize they're showing you exactly where you've been weak and exactly where you must grow. That growth won't just make you more attractive, it will make you unstoppable in every part of life. And when you become that man, you stop chasing, you stop begging, you stop trying to prove yourself. You live, you build, you embody strength. Women notice, men respect it. And suddenly, standards no longer feel harsh, they feel like the reason you finally woke up. So here's my challenge to you. Stop running from the truth. Stop drowning in excuses. Stop numbing yourself in digital pleasure just to avoid the discomfort of growth. Face it, build yourself, protect your energy, raise your own standards so high that meeting women's standards feels natural, not impossible. Because the moment you do, you won't just be part of the 98% who fail, you'll be one of the rare few who women don't want to let go. And if this message struck a chord with you, then take a second to share your thoughts below. I'd love to know where in your life you've seen this play out. Drop a like if you found value here. It helps me know this content matters. And if you're ready for more raw, unfiltered truth about dating, attraction, and becoming a stronger man, hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next. Trust me, the next lesson could be the one that changes everything.